Okay, so welcome to the deep dive.
Mhm.
If you get that feeling,
Yes,
like,
it is.
your to-do list just kind of explodes overnight, and you're just constantly running around like crazy, but like not really getting anywhere on the stuff that, actually matters. It's kind of what we're digging into today.
Yeah, I mean, it's a super common problem, and judging by all the stuff you sent my way, I think you're looking for a way to be smarter about your time, to focus on the stuff that really moves the needle. You know what I mean?
Exactly, exactly. So yeah, your articles, those are our jumping off point for this deep dive. We're tackling how to master this whole task prioritization thing. Streamline your workload and zero in on the stuff that actually makes a difference. Like the goal is to help you have that aha moment, the shortcut to actually feeling productive without drowning in a sea of information.
Yeah.
One thing that really stood out in your readings was that distinction between like urgent stuff and important stuff. It's a concept that Eisenhower, the president, he really made it famous.
Right, yeah. The Eisenhower box, it's a classic, right? It's like this basic framework for thinking about how you actually spend your time. It's basically a matrix, helps you categorize all your tasks.
Okay, so for you and me, like, let's break it down, right? Let's picture like a four-square grid. What
Yeah.
goes where?
Okay, so top left, you've got tasks that are both urgent and important, right? These are like your crises, deadlines you absolutely cannot miss, the things that just scream for your attention, huge consequences if you don't handle them. And then over in the top right, you've got tasks that are important, super important, but not urgent. Think strategic planning, building relationships, learning new skills, that kind of thing. These are crucial for long-term success, but they often get pushed aside by the urgent stuff.
Yeah, that top right corner, it feels like that's where all the good intentions go to die in my to-do list. You know what I mean?
Oh, totally, totally. And the research, it actually shows that that's a super common struggle. People find themselves spending way too much time down in the bottom left quadrant, urgent but not important. Interruptions, some meetings, a bunch of emails, they feel pressing, but they don't actually get you any closer to your main goals. And then, of course, you got the bottom right, tasks that are neither urgent nor important. Time wasters, distractions, the stuff that doesn't really serve any purpose.
So the idea is if you look at your own to-do list, through this Eisenhower lens, then you can start to like make better choices about where you spend your energy.
Exactly. The idea is to ask yourself, does this really need to be done right now? Urgent and important. Should I schedule time for this later? Important, but not urgent. Can I hand this off to someone else? Urgent, but not important. Or can I just ditch this thing altogether? Neither urgent nor important. It's all about taking control of your focus.
Yeah, that's a super helpful way to visualize it. I like that. Now, there was another concept that popped up in a few of your articles, the Pareto principle, the 80-20 rule.
Yeah, what's really cool about the Pareto principle, as your sources highlighted, is that it's not just some abstract idea. It pops up everywhere, even in how we use our time.
So, for people like me, what's the principle actually saying?
Well, in simple terms, it suggests that, roughly speaking, 80% of your results come from just 20% of your effort. It's something people have noticed in all sorts of fields.
Okay, so if I'm looking at my to-do list, how can I use this 80-20 rule to get more done?
The key is to zero in on that crucial 20% of your tasks, the stuff that'll make the biggest difference. By putting most of your time and energy into those high-impact things, you'll see a much bigger return. One of the articles you shared, it even talked about a study where top performers, they actually dedicate a lot more time to their what they call vital few, tasks.
That's a good way to put it, shifting the perspective.
Yeah.
Instead of feeling like you have to tackle everything with the same intensity, you're trying to find the tasks that'll give you the most bang for your buck, right? So how do you figure out what that top 20% is for you?
You got to put some thought into it. Think about your big goals. What are you really trying to achieve? Then, for each item on your list, ask yourself, if I get this done, how much closer does it get me to those goals?
Right. It's not about just checking off boxes. It's about making sure you're checking off the right ones. Now, you also mentioned a pretty simple technique, the Ivy Lee method. Based on your notes, this one really caught your eye.
Yeah, the Ivy Lee method, it's crazy how simple it is, but it's been effective for like forever. Goes back over 100 years, proves that sometimes the simplest stuff works best.
So how does it work? What do you actually do each day?
You do it at the end of your workday, sets you up for the next day. You make a list of the 6 most important things you need to do tomorrow. Just 6. That limit is important, forces you to prioritize.
Just 6. Seriously, in our world of never-ending to-dos, that's kind of a radical idea.
It is. Once you have your 6, you rank them by importance. Number 1's the most crucial, number 2's next, and so on. Be real with yourself about what needs to happen.
Okay, so you've got your prioritized 6. What happens the next day?
You start with number one and you work on that and only that until it's finished. Then you move to number two and you just keep going like that. Anything that doesn't get done, well, it just goes on the next day's list.
Sounds super focused, right? Cuts out that feeling of doing a million things at once and never really finishing anything.
Exactly. It encourages deep work and makes sure you're always tackling your biggest priorities first. Then at the end of that day, you do it all over again. New list of 6 for the next day. Add in any leftovers and new priority.
It's beautifully simple, very doable, not intimidating at all. You also share some thoughts from some big names in the productivity world, Stephen Covey, David Allen, those guys. How do their systems build on these prioritization ideas?
Both Covey and Allen have really changed how we think about managing our time and tasks. And for sure, their methods have prioritization built in. Covey, in The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, one of your articles mentioned this, he expands on Eisenhower's idea of urgent versus important with his own time management matrix. Helps you really categorize stuff and focus on the right things.
So it's still about figuring out what really matters, what's just making noise, right?
Yeah, spot on. Covey's big on spending more time in that important but not urgent quadrant. Those are the things you do before problems pop up, the things that help you grow over time. He says if you ignore that area, you end up with more crises in the urgent and important one, the stuff you got to deal with right now.
That makes a lot of sense. It's like, taking care of your car so it doesn't break down on you later instead of always having to fix it when it does. What about David Allen and his getting things done stuff, GTD? You mentioned that one too.
Right. David Allen's GTD, as you said, it's about getting everything out of your head and into a system you trust so you can actually focus. Prioritization in GTD comes in when you're deciding what to actually pull from that system and work on. Allen's got some guidelines for that based on things like context, how much time you've got, your energy levels, and of course how important it is. Figuring out the next action for every task is big in GTD. Breaking down those big tasks into smaller, more manageable steps helps you actually make progress on the things that matter most.
So it's like having this big picture of everything you got to do and then a way to decide what to tackle next based on different factors, how important it is being one of them. Now, we wanted to throw in some fun facts, some surprising stuff too. You had a cool example from Leonardo da Vinci.
Oh, yeah. I mean, the guy was a genius, right? Did so many incredible things. It's kind of amazing that even he seemed to understand how important it is to focus. Historians think he had all these notebooks, tons of them, and each one was for a specific topic. Anatomy, art, engineering, all kinds of stuff. By separating his thoughts and tasks like that, he could totally immerse himself in whatever he felt was most important at the time, even though he had like a zillion projects going on. It's like an early example of strategic focus, you know?
It's a great point. Reminds you that this struggle to manage your focus, your priorities, it's not just a modern thing. It's been around forever. And you had another tip for us, something a little more quirky.
Yeah. This one comes from David Allen's GTD again. It's called the 2-minute rule. The idea is if you can finish something in under 2 minutes, do it right then. Don't even put it on your list, just knock it out.
2 minutes. I mean, that seems almost too small to even make a difference.
But think about it. All those tiny tasks, a quick email, filing something, a short phone call, they pile up and clutter your mind, right? By just doing them right away, you stop them from building up and making you feel overwhelmed. It's a surprisingly effective way to build momentum and stop procrastinating on the little stuff.
I can see how those little things can just weigh on you.
Yeah,
Makes sense to just clear them out.
exactly. And it goes back to that main point, the one we keep coming back to. Being good at prioritizing isn't about doing more stuff. It's about choosing what you do very carefully.
Absolutely. Okay, so let's boil all of this down. We've got 5 key tips for prioritizing, things you can start using today.
Okay, here we go. First one, take some time, maybe at the beginning of your day or week, to go through your list and use that Eisenhower box. Put everything into its category, urgent and important, important but not urgent, and so on. That'll give you a clear picture of where your focus should be.
Just that initial sorting, that feels like it would clear things up right away.
Yeah, it does. Second tip, use the Pareto principle. Think about your big goals and ask yourself, what are the 20% of tasks that will get you 80% of the way there? Put your time and energy there.
So focus on the impact, not just being busy.
Right. Third, try out the Ivy Lee method. At the end of your workday, pick your 6 most important tasks for tomorrow, rank them. Then, the next day, work through them in order. See how that laser focus changes things for you.
I really like that idea of ending the day with a plan for the next one. Probably makes starting the day a lot easier, less stressful.
For sure. Tip number 4, the 2-minute rule. Anything you can do in under 2 minutes, just do it. This little habit will keep those small tasks from taking over.
Easy enough to start doing right away.
And last but not least, make a weekly review part of your routine. Take some time every week to look at your goals, see where you're at, and tweak your priorities if you need to. Keeps you on track with what really matters in the long run.
Yeah, that regular check-in seems super important, especially when things are changing all the time. Now, you also had a couple of more creative ideas for us, things that are a little outside the box.
I do. For those who want to try some different approaches, here are two. First, mind mapping. It's a visual way to map out your tasks and how they relate to each other. Gives you a different perspective, helps you see the big picture and figure out your priorities.
I've used mind maps for brainstorming, but using them for managing tasks, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah, it gives you that overall view and helps you break those big projects into smaller, prioritized actions. The other idea is biorhythm scheduling. This is about matching your tougher tasks with the times when you naturally have the most energy.
Biorhythms. Tell me more about how you actually use that.
Well, you go through natural cycles of high and low energy throughout the day. The idea is to pay attention to that and schedule your most important, complex tasks for when you're usually feeling your best, most focused. Save the less demanding stuff for when you have less energy.
That's a cool idea, working with your natural rhythms, not against them.
Exactly. It's about making the most of your energy so you can be as effective as possible on your priorities.
This has been really eye-opening. We've covered a lot, from those basic frameworks to practical tips and even some less conventional stuff, all about helping you master your to-do list and really focus on what matters.
And the big takeaway, the one we've stressed over and over, is that real productivity isn't about just doing more. It's about consciously choosing to focus on the tasks that will really move the needle, the ones that'll give you that sense of accomplishment.
Totally. It's about working smarter, not harder, right? So for our listeners, I'd encourage you to take these strategies, try them out, and see what works for you. Find what fits your own needs and how you work.
What's really powerful is that even if you just pick one of these techniques and use it consistently, it can make a huge difference over time. And that brings us to a final thought. Think about what would happen if you made even one of these methods a regular part of your day, every day. Over weeks and months, that could add up to a lot more control, a lot more feeling like you're getting things done, and more time for the things that truly matter to you. It's something to really consider as you go